IVM.
We keep getting requests, sir, there is an event, can you come and give a motivational talk? I said, no, I'm not a motivational guy. I will come and unmotivate people because people are heavily motivated. But if you want me to give a marketing motivational talk, I'll give it. But inside this, Karthik, all speakers, we need to have a shtick. And that shtick is something that you come up with a new talk, a couple of new talks on a topic every year or every 18 months or something, because you just can't keep talking the same thing. You can't be a one-trick pony and keep talking about the same thing for years together, which means you have to keep reinventing yourself.
My guest today introduces himself as an outlier marketer, a parallel entrepreneur, and a raconteur. He is the chairman and CEO of Krea, which is India's leading healthcare research panel, and a managing partner at Crux 108, which is a consulting company he started recently. He's also an angel investor in a couple of companies. One is Can Do, which is a BPO by and for the physically challenged, and Case, which is an artisanal cheese-making company. But I wanted to speak with Pravin Shekar about none of these. I was very, very interested in his latest book, which is in fact his third book. His previous one was a book called The Devil Does Care, which is for bootstrapped entrepreneurs, and another one which is in Outlier Marketing. His new book is How to Score Your First Paying Gig in Professional Speaking. And I was really, really interested in this because I've known Pravin for a while now. And until I saw this, and until I met a common friend that we have who's Pravin Shekar, I did not know much about professional speaking per se, which is why I thought it'll be interesting to do an episode on this. Welcome to the Filter Koffee Podcast, Pravin.
Oh, thanks for having me, Karthik.
It's been a fairly long time since I've been trying to do this, as you know. I'm so happy I finally found some time of yours.
Absolutely.
Pravin, there are probably 17 different ways in which I'm assuming one can introduce you. Of which one I just did.
Right.
But when you talk about yourself, I think you probably refer to yourself as a raconteur.
Yeah.
If I'm pronouncing this right. What does it mean?
A raconteur is a storyteller.
Right.
I am a professional speaker, a parallel entrepreneur, and a raconteur. Those are the three keywords that I use to introduce myself. And if I need to convey a message and that needs to stick in your brain, the best way to tell it is with a story. And therefore a storyteller and hence a raconteur.
And talking of stories, congratulations on your 47,000th book.
Third book.
Which is amazing. It's amazing because I know of your turnaround time and how quick it is. It is fabulous that you're able to accomplish that feat. The new one is about professional speaking.
Yes.
And it's how to get your first paid gig.
Yes.
In professional speaking, right? Your own journey in professional speaking started fairly late, safe to say?
As a professional speaker, yes.
Right.
As a speaker in the international stage, it was Rome in 2006 where it first started. And I was speaking internationally quite a bit. 2009 was my inflection point. It's a talk that I gave in Montreux, Switzerland. And for a business or for any division, so for speaking, you need that point which catapults you to another level. So to me, it was that. And I started getting invited to talk in a whole lot of places. Until 2015-16, somebody said, sir, so how much do you charge? And it was news to me. They said, hey, you can charge. You can actually charge for speaking. I didn't realize that there was a profession called professional speaking.
Right.
And at that point, another good friend of mine, also my book coach, Pravin Shekar, and both of our trajectories in professional speaking are similar. So I called him up and then both of us decided to land up at the Asia Pacific Professional Speakers Summit in Singapore, just to learn what is this business of professional speaking all about. And within 4 years of that, we've set up the Professional Speakers Association of India. So back to your question, fairly late, yes, in terms of charging and putting a value to my talk.
Yes.
As a speaker, it's been a long while, but as a professional speaker, it's the last 3 to 4 years.
Right. I mean, for the uninitiated, for people who don't know you, you had a long and illustrious career in research, and I've heard you at various SOMAR panels, and of course as an entrepreneur, as a subject matter expert, etc. Right. What are the forums where a professional speaker gets invited to? What kind of forums? Because for the uninitiated like me, this immediately goes back to that one film that I saw, which is Up in the Air. I'm assuming that's what comes to most people's mind, where George Clooney, Ryan Bingham, and then of course my other initiation is Kiruba himself,
right?
On a social stream. But what kind of a forum does a professional speaker get invited to?
Conventions that are being planned, events that are being planned, either external or internal to a particular company. If it's a large company, then divisions. A professional speaker is invited because he or she provides a particular value. They provide specific takeaways. So organizations or associations like TIE, Entrepreneurs Organization, YPO, the Ascent Foundation are all such events that need good speakers, that charge the audience, that gives specific takeaways that they can go ahead and implement in their life or business. So that's the kind of forum that we look for. That's the kind of forum that targets and looks at professional speakers to come in and rile up the audience in a positive way. So it could be keynotes, it could be opening or closing keynote, it could be breakout sessions, it could be the post-lunch session, which is also extremely important.
The graveyard shift.
Yes. Some of us put our hands up for that, because that's where you can make a difference.
Really?
Yeah.
Please tell me one thing I can take away on when I'm addressing any audience after lunch.
Humor works. Getting them to do an activity works. And then obviously you need to be a pretty good speaker so that they are tuned in more to you than the mobile phones.
Or to their dreams. Hopefully not. So when I go to events, right, for example, I'm in the business of advertising. So I go to a lot of marketing events, right? So the kind of people I see are big names in the industry. So you know what they're going to speak about. Is it important for a professional speaker to be from the industry that he's talking about?
No, Karthik, it is not necessary. But it is absolutely important for a professional speaker to know which audience he's talking about and what is the clear takeaway that he's going to provide.
Right.
Now, one of the great rowing coaches was not a rower. He was a boxer. So when he came over to coach, he brought a completely different element to it. So it is necessary for associations and organizations to deliberately introduce virus from outside, just so that the association or the event doesn't become incestuous.
Right. Can someone, for example, take this up as a profession, in the sense as a full-time job? There is enough out there for me to... At what stage does one take this up as a profession?
Is there enough money out there? Absolutely. Is there enough money in India? The market is slowly changing. And I'm going to give you an example here, because we have been asked, sir, you're only going to come and speak for 1 hour. Why do you want to charge? Why don't you just come? We'll take care of your to and fro. To which I turn around and say, to give a talk, it takes me 54 hours to prepare for it. Right? So I'm not just charging for the 1 hour I'm on stage. I'm charging for the entire package and the value that I'm providing to each of your audience. So rolling back, is it a full-time profession? Yes, absolutely. Now, Karthik, I need to add, it's just been 2 weeks since I returned from the National Speakers Annual Convention in the US, which had about 1,500 professional speakers in the audience.
Wow.
People charging $25,000 for an hour of talk, $50,000 for an hour of talk. Now, that is the American market that changes your entire perspective. And here I was, a speaker, a professional speaker from the Indian Asian continent, going out there and realizing how big the world is. To answer your question, is it a full-time profession? Oh, yeah. Is there enough in the business? Absolutely. As long as you are ready to go in for the grind.
Right.
Because you will need to prove that you are an expert in that topic. And there are various ways you need to prove and highlight that part, which means you will end up doing a few free talks to establish your brand, put up a value to your time, which is X. And as your brand value goes up, it becomes 2X, 3X, 4X that the market is ready to pay.
Right. So if you have to find a forum, where you need to, which you need to scope out and then probably grow within, like outside industries, which, obviously the experts in the industry are known to everyone in the industry. Other than this, there are forums like the Outstanding Speakers Bureau and everything else, right? Are these the forums that one aims to get into, or are there other forums?
Well, there's one that we recently started, the Professional Speakers Association of India.
Right.
Pravin Shekar is the president. I'm one of the founding board members of that. Brought in for the very purpose of improving the business of speaking. Now, when members come in and say, I want to improve my speech, etc., that's the art of speaking, go to Toastmasters. But if you are a speaker and you want to get into the business of speaking, then the Professional Speakers Association is for you. And the bureaus that you mentioned are in-betweens. They assist good speakers get the exposure. So they already have a connect with the conventions or the event organizers and the like, who are always hungry for newer talent, for fresher talks. Speakers like myself and a few others, we market ourselves.
Right.
We have not yet signed on with a bureau, but there are a few who swear by speaker bureaus to go ahead with. Whichever model is suitable for a speaker, they tend to pick it up. But generally, speaker bureaus only sign up speakers who are, one, willing, and two, have made the cut.
Right.
So it's easy for them to market.
Right. What I meant by that is, how do you put it out there? How do I tell the world that I'm available to speak? Is that the only option that I have?
That is the only option.
Yeah, that is the only option. Yeah.
Plus, now with YouTube and Vimeo, Karthik, there are enough opportunities for you to drop in these footnotes, not the entire speech,
right,
but just enough for the people to know that, hey, this guy sounds interesting. He's got a unique topic and a nice way of delivery. Why don't we consider him? The second, of course, and what I call the wolf pack,
right,
which is, I'm a speaker. I speak on marketing. Krea speaks on digital selling. Vijay speaks on prevention of sexual harassment policies in companies. Sangeeta, Sumesh speaks on high performance. We all speak to the same audience.
Right.
So when I go and finish up a talk, and our goal, Karthik, as professional speakers, bulk of our business is through word of mouth, is I give a cracker of a talk that I get off stage and my next talk is already booked. Right? But if I have spoken at that particular conference, unlikely that they will want me to come back again next year and speak. They will want a few other people.
Right.
Now, I will not refer anybody. I will only refer these people whom I know can deliver value, because I'm translating a bit of the trust that I have recently gained onto these people. So for somebody who's just branching out into the world of professional speaking, form your wolf pack. Get other people to refer. So that's a translation of trust, which means you have a higher scope of succeeding and getting that booking.
Right. And you said you speak about marketing and everyone has a specialization, right? At some point, does fatigue set in on the area, which you're talking about? And I've only been talking about advertising for the last 5 years and I'm bored like hell, right?
Now, you said I speak on marketing. I speak on marketing. That's my generalization, but I'm a specialist in outlier marketing. So that's my T. So anything and everything that I talk about relates back to outlier marketing.
Right.
Now, we keep getting requests, sir, there is an event. Can you come and give a motivational talk? I said, no, I'm not a motivational guy. I will come and unmotivate people because people are heavily motivated. But if you want me to give a marketing motivational talk, I'll give it.
Right.
Right. But inside this, Karthik, all speakers, we need to have a shtick. And that shtick is something that you come up with a new talk, a couple of new talks on a topic every year or every 18 months or something, because you just can't keep talking the same thing. You can't be a one-trick pony and keep talking about the same thing for years together, which means you have to keep reinventing yourself. Fatigue, one example is, as I said, I've been speaking for close to 10 years, and 2014-15, I started getting a bit bored with my own style of delivery. It started to get repetitive, very predictive to myself. End of the day, I'm speaking to deliver value, but I write for myself, I speak for myself, I'm there to pass on a message. And that's when I decided to go and do a 3-month course in storytelling, which changed the entire way and brought that mojo back. Right. And which is one of the reasons why I keep advising speakers to keep working parallelly on multiple topics inside your own chosen aspects. So inside Outlier Marketing, I'm now researching Sun Tzu, The Art of War, to come out with The Art of War for Outlier Marketing. We've just finished interviewing 30 street vendors of Chennai to come out with what can we learn from those who, forget a B school, those who haven't even been to school.
Right.
So you've got to keep challenging yourself. Now, these are aspects that I hope people would love to hear, to listen to. So I am writing for myself, but also for my particular audience.
So you mentioned outlier marketing, right? For those who are hearing that phrase for the first time or wondering what it is, what is outlier marketing?
Unconventional marketing, Karthik. Unconventional, which goes against the grain, which might be controversial at times, but then it has a straight line between your activity, a marketing activity, and the ROI and the objective that you meet. Bulk of marketing, since you're in advertising, is gray. How can you attribute it to that particular aspect? Did it even work?
Right.
How can I quantify marketing?
Right.
Let's just stick to vanity metrics. No. So outlier marketing is unconventional marketing with a clear direct line connect between the activity and the ROI, whether it worked or not, and then you go ahead and do quite a bit more. So it is exceptionally useful, especially when you've tried. It's got you to a certain point and then you hit a plateau, which means you literally have to shake things up.
Right.
And that is where an outlier thinking comes into play, which is going against the grain.
Shaking things up, growing against the grain is a wonderful place for us to take a very quick break. We're in the Filter Koffee Podcast. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to another awesome week at the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Don't forget to take a screenshot of whatever podcast of ours that you're listening to. Take a screenshot and put in a comment about what you think about the show, and we will reshare it from our social media pages. Here's what's in store for you this week. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by Chef Vinesh Johnny, co-founder of Livon Academy. He talks to Cyrus about what goes into running a pastry school and how his life led him to be a pastry chef. On Ganatantra, hosts Alok and Sarayu are joined by Dr. Andrew Whitehead to discuss the various implications of the repeal of Article 370 and the complicated history and future of Kashmir. On 9XM Soundcast, host Eva Bhatt is in conversation with music composer and singer Clinton Cerejo. Clinton shares his journey from producing ad jingles to composing Bollywood soundtracks and being invited to Berklee School of Music. On Paperback, Racheta and Satyajit talk to playwright and poet Nikhil Katara about absurd plays and Kafka's letters that have influenced him. On the Pragati podcast, Sambit Das joins Pawan Srinath to talk about medical education and the NMC Act. Just a little announcement, the new episodes of Pragati podcast will be available every Wednesday starting next week. On the Edges and Sledges cricket podcast, Varun, Ashwin and DJ are discussing England's struggle in the Ashes, Nathan Lyon's performance, the retirements of Dale Steyn, Hashim Amla and Brandon McCullum, and also the India-West Indies T20 matches. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh talk about The Great Hack, The Loudest Voice and The Final Year, stories that have starred Donald Trump. On Marbles Lost and Found, Zain and Avanti talk to former IVM staffer Janam Devan about grief and loss. And with that, let's get you back onto your show.
Welcome back to the Filter Koffee Podcast. We're speaking with Pravin Shekar, and we were just talking about outlier marketing and going against the grain. I want to take a couple of steps back, Pravin, into your own journey so far, right? And you've not always been a marketer. At what point did outlier marketing become an area of passion for you?
I've not been a marketer all through, but I've been anti-everything for quite some time.
Quite some time, yes. Yeah.
I am my own guy and I love doing things differently. At some point, you let go of all the associated shame. Well, I'm a guy who grew up in the north and moved down south and immediately hit up with a culture shock that whatever you do, be aware of the 4x4. What is this 4x4? Well, 4 people will say 4 different things and therefore you might as well stick to the groove. You stick to convention, you just follow tradition. But at some point you just decided to give everything a go by and jump right in. So it started with that, but it also started, I'm just leaving a small note that I'm living my second life. And that plays a significant part when you realize that the time that you have in this earth is limited and you might as well go ahead and do whatever you want to do. And that became my motto in life, and that became my motto in my talks and books and whatever it is. Was I a marketer always? No. I've put on the hat of a technologist. I've put on the hat of an entrepreneur. But it took my professors at IIM Indore to realize and din it into me that you are better suited for marketing than anything else. And I became a marketing convert and a marketing evangelist at IIM Indore. And ever since then, it's been marketing. And along the way, deliberately going against therefore Outlier Marketing appeared. And that's been my mantra ever since.
Wonderful. And you mentioned second life. What do you mean?
I met with an accident in 2006. I fell down from the first floor of a building onto the parking lot and had 3 fractures in the spine and 1 in the head, which put me out of commission for quite some time. I survived because I have a big butt and I landed on it. So, but between the ICU and the months of bed rest, it puts a whole lot of things in perspective, Karthik. And that's when my wife and I, we decided to enjoy life to the fullest and do whatever I can to the maximum. Do whatever I can legally, ethically, morally that is allowed. So I still won't bungee jump, so don't push me for that.
That's asking too much even for your butt. I did not know this. And I say that because I've known you for quite some time now. And I've always been amazed, Pravin, at the number of things that you find time for. Right? I've always known you as some form of an entrepreneur. Right. Either you're in the middle of building a company or in the middle of building 10. You call yourself a parallel entrepreneur, right? How do you conquer time?
By delegating. Now, it might sound cliched, but I sought external help. I had a CEO coach who did wonders to my career. I had mentors at various stages who encouraged me to go ahead and do certain things, which I did. So for each of these entities or companies that I have, I've got really good people working on it, which allows me free time to go ahead and do whatever I want to do, but continue to invest and experiment every year with a new initiative or the other. But it comes down to finding the right people and placing your trust in them. Right. And I'm going to digress a little bit and tell you about what I did in 2016.
Please.
Much to the consternation of my wife, I decided that 2016, I'm going to take a vacation of 10 days every month for 12 months, which is a whole week plus a Saturday, Sunday on both sides, sometimes the full 10 days. And I planned the whole of 2015 for it. Each of my entities had a CEO or an interim CEO or a COO running it. My wife really wanted to know because I'm a control freak, as every entrepreneur should be, a pretty hands-on person. And that experiment gave me the complete confidence, Karthik, because I went to Himalayas thrice. I went to China, Japan, Korea. I was in places where I could not be reached for a week.
You traveled alone?
I traveled alone. I traveled with my college buddies. I traveled with my school buddies.
Right.
I traveled with my wife. Obviously, hey, come on. I'm happily married still. So a couple of holidays with the wife and the kids as well. Out of the 3 entities at that point that I was involved in, 2 performed extremely well in my absence. 1 just about made it. It was plateauing, which showed to me that I'm technically redundant in tactical areas. I'm pretty good on the strategy front. And since then, I've just been footloose. I've been fiscally responsible, but everywhere else it's been footloose. But that allows me to focus on my career as a writer, as a speaker, as an evangelist, and allows me time to think, which is what we all talk about. I believe work-life balance is a myth. Come on, it's never going to be possible. You decide to enjoy both, and It's going to happen in parallel. And I can say so with confidence because one of the companies I run with my wife, Karthik. So,
this is a great time for me to, again, for those who don't know you, to put in perspective the wide variety of things that you do. Of course, they can always go to pravinshekar.com and figure this out. But I've known you many, many years back, decades back, as someone who was in the tech industry.
Right.
And then you conquered the research industry. Then you started Krea,
right,
which is one of the leading healthcare consulting research companies there. And then there's a lovely initiative that you and your wife do called Can Do, which is in terms of finding employment for
skilling and employing people with disabilities.
Right, yeah. Right. And you have also ventured into artisanal cheese.
Yes.
And you run a consulting company.
Yes.
And you are a professional speaker.
Yeah.
And you're an author of 3 books. Right? So that's what we're talking about when we say footloose, right? But what is the common thread across all of this, Pravin? What drives you?
Having fun, Karthik. Having fun. I love traveling. So anything that enables me to travel, I would jump at it. The other common thread is marketing. When I travel, it spurs my creativity. I write when I travel. I photograph when I travel. And that feeds back in. I collect stories. Wherever I go, whoever I meet, random strangers, my first question to them is, hi, hello, we exchange. And then tell me a travel story. Tell me something funny that happened when you traveled. And I collect all these stories, some of which I use in the talks, in the books. But the common thread is to enjoy life. There are ton-loads of things that you can complain about, very few that you can have fun with. And I decided to stay with the few that I'm having fun with.
Right. And a couple of things I forgot to add into this is you're an avid cyclist and you're a National Geographic award-winning photographer.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, I haven't told you my motto. Why just do when you can overdo? So the Nat Geo happened right after a trek that I had taken in 2016, which was things aligned here. I'm not being superstitious here, but I come back from the trek and I pick up a Nat Geo Traveler magazine from the airport, which talks about a competition in the same area, photos from the same area that I went to. So I come home, process the pictures and send. And lo and behold, I win the first prize out there, for which the award was an all expenses paid trip for two back to the state of Uttarakhand. So, so that's how it happened. I shamelessly apply for any of these competitions. You win some, you lose some. But then if you love it, it doesn't matter what happens.
You use that word a lot, right? In fact, you even call yourself Pravin Shameless Shekar in many forums when you introduce yourself.
Yes.
Right? What is the background to that?
The background to that is one of my shticks a few years ago was I used to conduct workshops on how to network effectively at conferences and others. And that was a super hit here. I don't do that anymore. I probably ought to. And that series of networking was called Be Shameless. So I've done it across 10 cities now. Right. And that moniker just stuck on. And who is an outlier marketer? If you have to be an outlier marketer, you need to be shameless. And therefore that is something I continue to talk on. You've got to be shameless if you want to achieve. 99% of the people don't even do anything because, Karthik, they are stuck with a syndrome called speculative inertia. Oh, if I ask, he's most likely going to say no. And why should I even ask? Oh, I will be so embarrassed if I ask and he says no. So I needn't do it. So if you have to get rid of speculative inertia, you need to become shameless first.
That's true in life and work.
Yes.
Yeah. This is, like we discussed, your third book, right? At what point in time do you think, there is a great thought which becomes an interesting discussion you probably have with your close circle. And at some point you feel like, oh, this story needs to be told. It could probably become a blog post at that point. And then you realize that somewhere this is more to it than any of these. And that's, I'm assuming, when a book happens. What is that journey for you?
How quickly can you get it out? What is the story that you want to tell? And sometimes enough is enough. Because we get into this quest of pseudo-perfection. That my book has to be perfect. It's got to be a bestseller on Wall Street Journal, etc. But who are you writing for? I write for myself. I write for my small set of community that we have formed together. So I write for them and it is very clear to my mind that is what I'm writing for. And once that is clear and you have told your story, you just stop and finish up with it. It's old school, Karthik, that my book has to be 300 pages. It needs to be 500 pages. I need to get everything else that is possible inside. Right. It is going to be one work of my lifetime. Well, to each his own. For me, I like to write a book that I love to read. I've got a huge wall full of books and I have only finished about 35%, but I've started 70% of those books. Never got around to finishing it. So I want to write a book that you can finish in a sitting, maybe two. Plus, I'm a professional speaker. So whatever I'm speaking on needs phenomenal research. It needs to be put together in stories. Yes, my keynote is for 45 minutes and my book, if you have to read it, is going to be another 45, 50 minutes alone. So anytime I have to start work on a new topic, it has to be repurposed. I'm going to talk on it at multiple places. Can I have a book associated? Can I have a course associated? Can I have a 5-10 part video series associated with it? Can I have the audio stripped and have it as a podcast? Is the way I will think.
Right.
Because you call me a professional speaker, I say I'm an information disseminator. I have the germ of an idea. The idea has been given birth in stories. One format is speaking, one format is video, one format is book. Can I get it out in each of these formats today? My third book, How to Get Your First Paid Speaking Gig. I need to tell you the genesis of it. So I happened to be in Bangalore to give a talk, and I put it up in the Bangalore WhatsApp group saying, guys, I'm here. I'm happy to have lunch with each of you. So 5 members of the Bengaluru PSAI came over. It was typical Bengaluru lunch. So there was a rum and whiskey and everything else flowing, and conversation was great.
Vibrant.
I was the only teetotaler there. So nobody took notes. For 2 hours, they were questioning me on how I got my first paid speaking gig, how can they get it, how to price, what to do, etc. After 2 hours, one lovely lady whose name I should not say, Pravin, we didn't take any notes. Can you please send something over? I said, absolutely, I'll send something over. So that weekend I start writing, just documenting what it is. One thing led to the other. Then I said, why not come out with it as a free offer for every member of the PSAI? And it's been significantly well received. So you never know, if you are ready, the ideas will come. You just need to be ready enough to transfer that idea, translate it into something more tangible.
Right.
I now hunt for stories.
So what's the most strangest experience you've had as a speaker? Good or bad?
Oh, I was out there speaking to a bunch of people in Jakarta. I was the keynote. I was the only speaker out there.
Right.
And I love playing with the audience. I love interacting. I love asking a lot of questions. First 5 minutes, dead. 0 facial reactions, 0 inputs, no hands up. And by the 15th to 17th minute, your that voice in your brain starts acting.
Right.
Boy, you're sucking. It's not working out. It wasn't working out, Karthik. It was a 30-minute talk. I was flown into Jakarta. And I finished the talk. There was 0 crowd participation.
Right.
The organizers shook my hand. Everybody, a lot of people came and swapped cards. Internally, I was shitting bricks saying, what the hell is this? What is going on?
Right.
The organizers were super happy. But then thankfully, I had a couple of senior people out there whom I had interacted with earlier. So over drinks, I pulled them aside and said, what happened? No reaction. Says, Pravin, as a speaker, you need to research your audience and you need to realize that Indonesians do not show emotion. They do not participate, but they take notes. 2, you have to really slow down your speaking when you are talking to these people, and you were bloody fast. Right? Thankfully, I had the opportunity to redeem myself a couple of years later, but that was one experience that shows how I need to prepare for that audience, which I corrected 2 years later when I was speaking in Japan. When I realized it's a similar audience out there, I went in doubly prepared. But this is a crazy experience that I've had that I love to share as a learning for others so that you don't repeat the same mistakes I did.
Lovely. And from that extraordinarily big wall of books, what are you reading these days?
Right now, I'm researching The Art of War that I told you. I love reading marketing books. The one I'm reading is Do It Marketing by David Newman. And I believe in polygamy as far as books are concerned. So these are the 2 books I'm reading, along with Dhammapada, which is a collection of Buddhist short stories, which I try to weave into whatever I'm doing. So at the moment, I'm reading these 3 books in parallel. And I firmly believe that I need to have a book within arm's reach at any point in time.
Right.
And I also do Kindle, but call me a bit old school, Karthik. The love when you have the book in your hand and the feel with a cup of coffee. This is a Filter Koffee Podcast. You have a coffee and a book and you lounge around. It's a completely different feeling.
And the Kindle doesn't look very good on the wall.
It doesn't.
I've never been, for some strange reason, a lover of marketing books fundamentally because I feel it would influence you in a certain way. And it's obviously misplaced. And I feel that your originality will disappear. You'll become more of a follower of a certain way of thinking, right? So why kill something original,
right,
sort of thing? But you, for the amount of reading that you do, I don't know, what do you make of that?
I'm a rebel with a cause. I'm an outlier marketer. Remember, I need to know which way the winds are blowing to go the opposite way.
Right. And you must be really, really hard to influence.
Plus, Karthik, I firmly believe that there is very minimal original content in the world anyways. Yeah. Everything is repurposed. Everything is put on in a different mash. You have the same roti atta, which is you make roti and puris and everything else out of, which is what it is today. Right. Not just with reference to marketing, with everything else. When was the last original idea that you and I came up with? I can't remember. So I believe that content is there for you to take in, add your individuality. You call it originality or otherwise, and then you present it to another audience the way they need for a value, for providing a solution. There's another beautiful book by Mark Earls called Copy. It says, go ahead and copy. Because everything in the world is a copy anyways. Even though it's attributed to the guy who's most popular at the moment. So you should go ahead. And to me, and to a bunch of people I associate with, it is that spark, Karthik. You don't know where that spark is going to come from. And all you need is that spark to get you onto speaking or writing or creating value.
Right.
So always in the eternal search of that spark, and we keep getting that spark.
Right.
And you have to use it, fan it, let it glow. The other book that I keep going back to, now you said, which one do I read? I keep going back to a book called Super Promoter by Ryan Vogela, which is all about identifying your super fans and what you do for the super fans, which is a marketing concept. Now, let's say we have this podcast and let's assume that 5 to 10% don't like the podcast. Highly possible. As a typical marketer, entrepreneur, podcast creator, you'll be more concerned about why don't they like it? Why these 5 to 10% are not liking it? What can I do to make them like it?
Right.
While you will have a 10 to 15% of the audience that's loving you, that's recommending you, that's talking about you at every given opportunity, that is your core team. Do you know who they are? They are your super fans and super promoters. So the amount of time that you're fretting over the 5% who don't like you versus the 15% who do, and all they need, they don't want discounts, they don't want vouchers. They just love you for who you are and the podcast for what it is. All you can do is, thank you for listening. Now, what else would you want to hear? So it's just involvement and inclusion. So how do you identify who these 10-15% are? And the same Pareto principle applies here. Now, whether you like Pareto or not, it's an oft-quoted cliche. Let's call it 15%, 85% in this case. And they are the ones who are going to go ahead and grow. That becomes a part of your tribe.
Right. Those are the ones that you want to make sure that tribe becomes larger and bigger. And that's a very, very radical thought, right? Never occurred to me, honestly.
Oh, not mine. It's Ryan Vogela. I've attended his session. I've heard him talk in at least 3 or 4 different stages. So that's a concept that sticks to me, that you take care of those who love you. Those who hate you will continue to hate, but let's focus on those who love me.
Do you listen to podcasts much, Pravin?
I do. It's more to do whenever I'm going on long drives.
Okay.
So that is...
what do you listen to?
I like the Marketing Book Podcast, where every episode they review quite a few books. There's another one called Made You Think, which just talks about absolute random stuff that goes on. So those are the 2 that are constant. And then you just flip through. Anytime there's duct tape marketing and a whole lot. Am I boxing myself in this? No, there's a Buddhism podcast that I look at as well.
Right.
Why? Because it talks about consciousness. And end of the day, as marketers, how are decisions made? And you'll have to look at every possible aspect. So those are the ones. I have not mentioned yours because I assume that's already there. So
Thank you. I shall send the check. Thank you so much, Pravin. It was absolutely phenomenal talking to you. Thank you for making the time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So that was our show. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter. And Filter_Koffee. That's coffee with a K on Instagram.
Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Careers in the New podcast series presented by Accenture. I'm your host, Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay. In this podcast series, we'll get you the latest and greatest in the world of technology that's shaping the future of business as we know it. We're talking intelligent platforms, cloud, AI, blockchain, extended reality, and a whole lot more. Every fortnight on Wednesdays, we'll have for you a hot topic with expert speakers from Accenture talking about top trends in the space, how these are changing the world and creating growth across industries. And importantly, we'll tell you how you can learn more, build your skills and expertise to grow and stay relevant in your career. Episodes out on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcast from.
Did you know that Parsis in Mumbai, instead of being left at the Tower of Silence after they die, are now cremated? And why? Because a cow fell sick in the early 1990s. Did you know that the smog in Delhi is caused by something that farmers in Punjab do and that there's no way to stop them? Did you know that there wasn't one gas tragedy in Bhopal, but 3? One of them was seen, but 2 were unseen. Did you know that many well-intentioned government policies hurt the people they're supposed to help? Why was demonetization a bad idea? How should GST have been implemented? Why are all our politicians so corrupt when not all of them are bad people? I'm Amit Verma, and in my weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen, I take a shot at answering all these questions and many more. I aim to go beyond the seen and show you the unseen effects of public policy and private action. I speak to experts on economics, political philosophy, cognitive neuroscience, and constitutional law so that the insights can blow not only my mind, but also yours. The Seen and the Unseen releases every Monday. So do check out the archives and follow the show at seenunseen.in. You can also subscribe to The Seen and the Unseen on whatever podcast app you happen to prefer.